Okay, let's unpack this. If you've ever been completely stuck in a deep, dark emotional slump, you know that feeling. That total lack of motivation isn't just, like, annoying.
No.
It feels physical, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like climbing Everest just to get a glass of water.
Exactly. And too often we hear it, or maybe we even tell ourselves that it's just laziness or some kind of weakness.
And that's such a critical misunderstanding we really need to tackle. What the sources we dug into show is that this kind of profound lack of motivation, especially during a depressive episode, it's not a moral failing. It's more like a neurochemical hijacking.
A hijacking. Explain that.
Well, think of it like a storm inside your brain that temporarily shuts down key systems.
Hmm.
We're talking about major impacts on dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, the pathways that usually drive you. When your whole reward system is sort of offline, willpower just isn't really in the equation.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to give you a clinical grade protocol.
Right.
This isn't just theory.
No, not at all. It's built right on the foundations of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and more specifically, something called behavioral activation, or BA.
And the really crucial part here, I think, is that every single tactic we're going to talk about is zero cost. And maybe even more importantly, zero energy entry. Designed for those really tough days.
Precisely. This is all about stabilization first. It's about tactics for fighting a brain that's actively telling you, retreat, shut down. The goal here is to give you a practical roadmap for those days when, honestly, like one source put it, getting out of bed is the win.
Right, so where do we start? The protocol begins with immediate physiological triage. Step 1 is called the 3-minute survival sequence. Why just 3 minutes? Seems short.
It seems short, but it's intentional, because trying to tackle some big goal when you feel that level of depletion, it triggers what the clinicians call shutdown escalation.
Shutdown escalation,
Right. Meaning your brain just recognizes this huge gap between what you want to do and what you feel capable of doing, and it just gives up instantly. So we have to stabilize the system before we even attempt any kind of strategy.
Okay, that makes sense. So the first minute, 0 to 60 seconds, what happens?
It's micro movement. And I really mean micro.
How micro?
Like if you are literally bedbound, it could be just lifting one finger 10 times. That's it. Or if you can manage it, just sitting up in bed.
Wow. Okay, that sounds almost too simple.
It does sound ridiculously minimal, I know.
Oh.
But biomechanically, it's surprisingly powerful. That tiny movement sends a signal to your vagus nerve.
Which does what?
It helps to reduce that hyper-alertness, that sort of background hum of fight or flight that often comes with depression. Our notes pointed to a 2021 meta-analysis showing that just 60 seconds of this kind of micro-movement can reduce anhedonia, that really painful loss of pleasure, by about 12 to 18% right away.
Immediately, just from lifting a finger.
Acutely, yes. It's like a tiny, instant physiological reset.
Okay, so you're physically telling your body, hey, the immediate danger is passing. Makes sense. Then, minute 2, from 60 to 120 seconds.
That's the sensory anchor. This is where the classic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique comes in. You know, name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch.
Right, 3 you hear, 2 you smell, 1 you taste. I've heard of this for anxiety.
Exactly. It's a well-known trauma technique, but it's brilliant here, too. You're basically hijacking your own attention span in a helpful way by forcing your senses to connect with immediate objective reality right now.
You pull yourself out of the internal spiral.
Precisely. You bring the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, back online. And the research is pretty clear. This technique can reduce the activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, by about 25% in just 90 seconds.
Okay, so we've done micromovement, we've grounded ourselves. What's the last minute? 120 to 180 seconds.
This is the one-breath commitment. It's simple. You take one slow, deliberate breath. And then, this is key, you say aloud, I will do 1 2-minute action after this breath.
Saying it out loud matters.
It really does. You haven't even defined the action yet, so the energy cost is still practically zero. But the act of verbalizing that commitment, even just to yourself, it activates the anterior cingulate cortex.
Which is involved in
Goal pursuit, initiating action. Even when your dopamine levels might be really low, that verbal cue gives your brain a tiny nudge forward. It sets the absolute minimum necessary intention.
Right, so we've used 3 minutes to stabilize, signal safety, and set a micro-intention. Now we need to actually do something, however small. Step 2, the 2-minute action menu. This is based on behavioral activation, you said.
Yes, BA. For listeners maybe not familiar with the clinical term, the fundamental idea is incredibly powerful and kind of flips common sense on its head.
How so?
BA operates on the principle that action precedes mood. We usually think, I need to feel motivated before I can do something. BA says, nope, just do the tiny action first, and the mood, maybe even a flicker of motivation, will follow as a result.
Okay, action first. So you pick something from this depression-proof action menu, set a timer for just 2 minutes, do the thing, and then you stop.
Exactly. And crucially, if even 2 minutes feels like too much of a hurdle on a really bad day,
Cut it to 1 minute.
cut it to 1 minute. And what's fascinating here, based on the neuroscience, is that the part of your brain governing habit formation, the basal ganglia, it doesn't really distinguish between a 1 minute and a 2 minute completed task in terms of the chemical reward signal.
Really?
Yeah, the completion is the trigger for the reward circuit, not necessarily the duration, especially for these micro tasks.
Okay, so give us some examples from this menu. What kind of tiny action are we talking about?
They're categorized to make it easier. So, an environmental action might be moving one single object 12 inches, literally, like moving a dirty cup from your bedside table 12 inches closer to the door.
That's it.
That's it.
Right.
Or maybe a cognitive action. Open a notes app on your phone and write one single sentence, just one, like, I am still here, or this is a moment in time.
Okay, and a sensory one.
A sensory action could be something like holding an ice cube for 30 seconds.
An ice cube. Why?
The intense cold is a strong physical sensation. It anchors you firmly in the present moment. Very hard to ruminate when you're focused on that feeling.
I can see how moving a cup is, well, low stakes. But what if someone feels like even that tiny success is pointless, or just sets them up for feeling worse later when they can't do more? How does BA deal with that kind of resistance?
That's a really important question because that resistance, that fear of failure or disappointment, is huge. BA handles it by making the initial goal so incredibly small that failure is almost impossible.
Like moving the fork to the edge of the sink example.
Exactly. If you manage to move the fork, great, that's a win. If you aim to do it and you forget or just can't, the consequence is nothing, zero. The stakes are effectively removed, which lowers the barrier to even trying.
Makes sense. And there's another piece to this immediately after the action, right? The done list.
Yes, this is crucial. You physically write down what you just did, moved fork 12 inches done on a little piece of paper or sticky note, and you put it somewhere visible, like in a dedicated jar.
Why the physical act? Why not just mentally note it?
Because that visual proof of agency, seeing that jar fill up over days, it provides concrete evidence to your brain that contradicts the feeling of helplessness. It literally helps rewire the basal ganglia over time, reinforcing the idea I am capable of initiating and completing actions. It builds a sense of mastery, however small initially.
Okay, so we've stabilized, gotten that first micro-wind log. Now we need to think about rebuilding the fuel reserves,
Right.
Starting to actually repair the underlying systems.
Exactly. We're shifting gears slightly from just managing the immediate crisis to actively working on the brain's reward circuitry. The focus here is on the nucleus accumbens, a key area for motivation. This leads us to step 3, the dopamine reboot stack.
It's a stack, meaning multiple things layered together.
Precisely. 3 low-effort behaviors designed to gently boost the systems. Layer 1 is light exposure. And the timing is important here. It needs to be close to when you wake up.
Natural light.
Ideally, yes. About 10 minutes of natural sunlight. Or, if that's not feasible, using a 10,000 lux light therapy lamp.
And the impact of that light is significant.
Incredibly powerful, actually. The research suggests this kind of light exposure, especially in the morning, can increase serotonin levels by up to 200% within about 30 minutes.
Wow. And if you're really stuck in bed.
Even just opening the curtains and facing the window while still lying down counts. The point is getting that light signal to your eyes.
Okay, layer 2.
Layer 2 is about nutrition, specifically the protein plus omega-3 hit with your first meal or snack of the day. We're aiming for roughly 30 grams of protein and about 1 gram of omega-3 fatty acids.
Like what? What's an easy way to get that?
Think maybe 2 eggs and a small handful of walnuts. Or a protein shake with some added fish oil or flaxseed oil. It doesn't have to be complicated.
And the purpose of this combo?
Twofold, really. It helps stabilize blood sugar, which can often be erratic during depressive episodes and periods of high stress. And critically, it provides the building blocks for BDNF.
Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. We hear about that a lot, often called miracle grow for the brain.
That's a great analogy, yeah. BDNF is absolutely essential for neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and pathways. Basically, it helps your brain heal and rewire itself in healthier ways.
Got it. Light, then protein and omega-3s. What's layer 3?
Layer 3 happens in the evening. It's the victory log. And We need to be really clear. This is not the same as a standard gratitude journal.
Okay, how is it different? Why victory log?
The key difference is the focus. Instead of asking what good things happened today, which can feel impossible or even invalidating when you're deeply depressed.
Right, that can feel like pressure.
Exactly. The victory log asks you to identify 3 things that went less bad than you expected.
Less bad. Like
Yeah.
what?
Like, I only hit the snooze button twice instead of 5 times. Or, I managed to eat 1 vegetable today. Or, I took the trash out even though I really didn't want to.
Why frame it that way?
Because research suggests that depressed thinking patterns have a massive negative bias, something like 80% skewed towards the negative. Asking for things that were great often just hits a wall of resistance, but focusing on less bad gently challenges that negative bias by highlighting small objective instances where things weren't as catastrophic as the depression predicted. It focuses on measurable progress, however minor.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And the sources mentioned structuring this whole stack over time, the 21-day reboot cycle.
That's right. It provides a gentle ramp up. Week 1 is just about survival, focusing purely on getting that 1 2-minute action done consistently each day, plus the stack elements.
Okay.
Week 2 is about building momentum, aiming for 2 separate 2-minute actions daily, still tiny.
And week 3.
Week 3 is expansion. You aim for maybe 1 slightly longer action, say 5 minutes, and you add in a very low-effort social connection piece, like a social ping, which we'll get to. The whole idea is that the ramp-up is intentionally gradual, designed to match the brain's likely pace of healing.
Okay, so we're stabilizing, taking micro actions, fueling the system. But what about that constant negative chatter in your head? That feels like the biggest hurdle sometimes.
Absolutely. Which brings us to step 4. The Cognitive Diffusion Toolkit. This is straight out of CBT, designed to deal with those automatic negative thoughts ANTs that just swarm your mind when depression takes hold.
Diffusion, meaning like separating from the thought.
Exactly. It's about learning to observe your thoughts without automatically believing them or feeling like you have to act on them. One of the most powerful, simple drills is called labeling.
Labeling. How does that work?
It's incredibly simple. Whatever negative thought pops into your head, you mentally preface it with the phrase, I'm having the thought that.
So instead of I'm a total failure, it becomes
I'm having the thought that I'm a total failure. Or maybe you just notice, there's the failure thought again.
It sounds almost trivial, but does that small shift really help?
It creates distance. That linguistic step acts like a buffer between you and the thought. Clinical trials actually show that this simple technique can reduce the emotional charge, the oomph of a negative thought, by around 40%. It takes away some of its power.
40% is significant. What's another tool from this kit?
Another really effective one, especially for that feeling of being overwhelmed by depression, is the passenger metaphor.
Okay, I think I've heard of this. The idea is that depression is like a loud, annoying passenger on your life's bus.
Precisely. Visualize that negative inner voice or the heavy feeling of depression itself as this really obnoxious passenger who's maybe yelling directions or insults from the back seat.
But you are still the driver.
Oh, you are the driver. The passenger can make a lot of noise, but they can't actually grab the steering wheel unless you let them. The action here is to acknowledge the noise, maybe even say aloud or just whisper to yourself, "Thanks for the input, passenger. I'm driving now."
So you're not fighting it, just acknowledging it and choosing your direction anyway.
Exactly. You acknowledge its presence, but you reaffirm your own agency over your actions, over where the bus is going, even if it's just moving 12 inches towards the sink.
Right. Okay, so we're working on the internal state, stabilizing, acting, diffusing thoughts. Now we need to look outward. Step 5, the environmental shield. The idea being that the external environment matters a lot.
Hugely. The research is pretty clear. Depression tends to thrive in environments that feel chaotic or overwhelming. So the goal is to set up your environment to default towards supporting action, or at least reducing drains on your limited energy.
Makes sense. What's a key rule here?
And one of my favorites from the sources, because it's so simple and effective, is enabling phone grayscale mode.
Just making your phone screen black and white.
Yep.
Go into your phone's accessibility settings and switch the display to grayscale.
Why does that help?
Because the bright colors on app icons, notifications, social media feeds, they're incredibly stimulating. They're designed to hijack your dopamine system and keep you scrolling. Switching to grayscale makes the phone visually, well, boring.
Takes away the reward.
Exactly. It reduces those constant little dopamine hits from notifications and endless scrolling by a documented 70%. It turns your phone from feeling like a Vegas slot machine into more like a dull tool.
Interesting. Okay, what else for the environment? Say the bed rules here.
Yes, the classic sleep hygiene rule.
Yeah.
Bed equals sleep plus sex only. That's it. No working in bed, no doom scrolling on your phone, no eating meals there.
Why is that separation so important? It's about retraining your brain's associations. If your brain starts associating your bed with wakeful activities, especially stressful ones like work or anxious scrolling, it seriously undermines your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. Following this rule strictly has been shown to reduce insomnia symptoms, which are a massive contributor to depression by around 60%.
60% is huge. And Q stacking, what's that?
This is about linking a tiny new desired action to an already existing habit. You stack the new behavior onto the old one.
That's a pile.
Like, after I pour my morning coffee existing habit, I will immediately take 10 steps around the kitchen, new tiny action. The existing habit acts as the trigger for the new microaction, making it easier to remember and execute.
Okay, that connects really well to step 6, which is the social lifeline. Because isolation is just brutal for depression, isn't it?
It's a massive amplifier. Some studies suggest isolation can increase the severity or risk of depression by as much as 300%. But the paradox is, when you're depressed, reaching out, having conversations, it can feel utterly impossible. The emotional labor is just too high.
So what's the low energy solution?
We use what the protocol calls Tier 1, signal flares. This is about maintaining a minimal connection without requiring a full interaction.
A signal flare. Like sending up a sign you still exist.
Pretty much. It could be as simple as texting one single emoji, a wave, a sun, anything neutral to one person each day. That's it.
No need for them to reply.
No reply needed or even expected. It's just a way to maintain that thread of social connection, that proof of existence, without draining your energy reserves with conversation.
Okay. And if someone has slightly more capacity, there's a tier 2.
Yes, for slightly more energy, there's the 5-minute check-in. This might be a once-a-week brief call with a trusted person using a very specific structured script.
The script. Why?
To keep it contained and low pressure. The script is basically, hey, just doing our quick check-in, rate your week 1 to 10, I'll do the same. No advice needed, just sharing the number.
So it's about mirroring and acknowledgement, not problem solving.
Exactly. Problem solving requires a lot of cognitive energy that might not be there. Just knowing someone else is acknowledging your state and sharing theirs non-judgmentally can be incredibly grounding and connecting without being overwhelming.
Okay, this is all incredibly practical. But we absolutely have to touch on step 7, the medical context.
Oh,
it's crucial, right?
Absolutely non-negotiable. We have to state this clearly. If depressive symptoms persist for more than 2 weeks, despite trying these strategies, or especially if they include any thoughts of self-harm or suicide, this is no longer just a motivation issue you can tackle alone.
It becomes a medical emergency.
It is a medical emergency and requires professional help immediately. Please reach out to a doctor, a mental health professional, or a crisis line. No amount of behavioral activation replaces necessary medical care when it's needed.
And part of that medical integration involves ruling things out.
Yes, the checklist is vital. Before assuming it's just depression, it's important to work with a doctor to rule out other potential physical causes or contributing factors. Things like bipolar disorder, thyroid imbalances, or even significant nutritional deficiencies like low vitamin D or B12 can mimic or worsen depressive symptoms.
And combining these behavioral strategies with medical treatment.
The evidence is overwhelming there. For many people, pairing behavioral activation tactics like the ones we've discussed with appropriate medication, like SSRIs prescribed by a doctor, leads to a significantly faster and more robust response. Something like a 70% faster improvement rate compared to medication alone in some studies. They work powerfully together.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this whole approach. The source material presented a really neat formula. The depression flywheel equation.
Right. It captures the essence of how these small steps build momentum. It goes. The 2-minute action multiplied by daily consistency multiplied by the environmental shield equals neurochemical reboot.
So it's the combination and the repetition that gets the wheel turning.
Exactly. You're essentially creating momentum from almost nothing, leveraging consistency and environment to gradually nudge the brain's chemistry back towards a healthier balance.
And we need to manage expectations on the timeline.
Yeah.
That's good. This isn't an overnight fix.
Definitely not. It's crucial to be patient. Day 1 might just feel 1% less heavy, maybe?
Yeah.
By day 30 of consistent effort with these micro steps, the goal might be feeling, say, 30% more functional.
And the longer-term view.
Day 90 is often cited as a reasonable time frame to aim for establishing a new, more stable baseline. It's about thinking in terms of maintenance mode, surviving and managing each small interval, trusting that the system is slowly recalibrating underneath.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for you, the listener?
Mm.
I think it means that motivation isn't some magical spark you either have or don't.
Not at all.
It's actually more like a physiological lever,
Mm.
one that you can learn to pull using these tiny concrete actions, even when your internal feeling is telling you there's absolutely zero willpower left in the tank. You're not broken.
You're not broken, you're just perhaps running a clinical grade system update one micro step at a time. And we really have to hammer home that core message from the sources. Depression lies.
How so?
It tells you with absolute conviction, this feeling, this situation is permanent, it will never end. But that's a chemical statement generated by a temporarily malfunctioning system. It's not a statement of fact.
It feels permanent, but it isn't.
It feels permanent, but it's a season. It has a biochemical reality, yes, but also a biochemical expiration date. And the amazing thing is, the same brain that constructed the patterns of depression has the inherent capacity to unbuild them using consistent, targeted, microscopic actions like these.
So a final thought for people to chew on after this deep dive.
Maybe consider the implications of that trigger purge rule we briefly mentioned, the idea of actively removing small points of chaos or drain. Like deleting, say, 5 apps you mindlessly scroll, or unfollowing 10 social media accounts that consistently make you feel agitated or inadequate. Ask yourself, what's one small, low-value, maybe slightly chaotic input you could remove from your digital or physical environment right now? Something that could reduce your daily decision fatigue by just 1%.
Because it's not always about adding things.
Sometimes it's those tiny acts of omission, choosing what not to engage with, that create the first bit of space needed to start the whole flywheel turning.